72.6% catch rate across 16 games. You don't get more efficient than this guy.
The great part about him is that we know he's a good zone beater.
First of all, going through the historical database, you don't see this kind of improvement, a 10-point improvement in man success rate going year to year. That's rare. Okay, this guy now has arrived. He is a great player. We're talking 1,400 yards, double-digit touchdowns. That's the dude. Amon-Ra St. Brown is that dude. Can he be that dude in this offense with no other options on the outside?
Look at the release.
There's your separation.
Great route.
Stutter and go. Gets by clean.
That is unbelievable.
Maybe the greatest catch I've ever seen.
Jalen Waddle's a great player. Great player. Amazing player is Jalen Waddle. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think, is in that same mold. Also a great player, too. 146 targets last year, 106 receptions, 1,161 yards, 6 touchdowns. Matt, a 72.6% catch rate across 16 games. You don't get more efficient than this guy, man. He's just always open, and he's always making catches, man. He was incredible in 2021.
Yeah, that article that I mentioned, the 20 receiver, or the top 15 receivers, I think I had Amon-Ra at 11. So he's left off the social media graphic, of course. And I'm getting, where's Amon-Ra St. Brown? And like we said in the last segment with Jalen Waddle, ranking receivers is really, really, really hard. The great part about him is that we know he's a good zone beater. 80.4% as a rookie, 81.8% as a second-year player. That was pretty stable. That was my point on, I went to bat for Amon-Ra St. Brown last year as a guy that was not just, people think he was like falling ass backwards into targets to end his rookie season. Like, no, he was getting a ton of targets. Yeah, the competition wasn't great. Guys were hurt, but it's because he's a good player. He's a great zone beater, and that's what you want from this big slot receiver archetype. I was really in on him last year, not being, like a gimmick, like a flash in the pan, like a really quality good player.
Yep. But
we saw him take a leap in his second season too against man press coverage, where again, he's not like an elite player, but he went from 60.3% as a rookie to 70.5% success rate versus man. And I remember doing the in-season charting, James, and mentioning this to you, being like, he's starting to show signs that in isolation, he can beat man coverage, 68.8% success rate versus press. Again, not an elite number, but a pretty quality number for somebody that's mostly an inside big slot receiver. Right. I think when you're ranking him against other players, it's just like, is he the downfield threat that some of these other guys are? Is he what I said, like with the Dolphins offense, where you have to defend every blade of grass? You look at Amon-Ra St. Brown's route tree, and that's not really there. But I mean, it's hard to ding him for that because it's not his role.
When you take a look at what he did last year, I'm just so impressed. First of all, he played 22% of his snaps outside as a rookie. They really jammed him inside, and that's the role that you want him in. He's absolutely breaking ankles as a slot receiver. So he played about 80% of his snaps as an inside player his rookie year. But then, Matt, what I found to be really interesting, he goes from 22% outside in 2021 to about 40% outside in 2022. So they expanded what he does. They said, hey, listen, we know you can win inside, but now we're going to ask you to win outside at times as well. Can he beat you over the top? Probably not. It's going to have to be, some kind of, a gimmicky play where, he can get in over the top of you, right? But for the most part, we know that what he's going to do in the short to intermediate area of the field, he's just going to bust you, man. Going back to his expanded role, more outside snaps. Then what does he do, Matt? Not only does he get more outside snaps, then he starts beating more man press coverage as well, right? So to me, that improvement, first of all, going through the historical database, you don't see this kind of improvement, a 10-point improvement in man success rate going year to year. That's rare. That's rare in the RP database. And then again, a huge improvement against press coverage, going from 52% success rate to 68%, nearly 69% success rate against press. That's a huge improvement.
Yeah, it's a huge improvement. And there are guys like Juju Smith-Schuster, right, who has this big second season and was always a good quality zone beater. but he's always been below like 60% against man coverage. So he started out lower than St. Brown, by the way. And it's crazy too. Like St. Brown really wasn't even a full-time player in the first part of his rookie year at all.
No.
He was like barely used. I remember writing in the in-season rookie report that year, like, yeah, he just hasn't really played very often. And they actually used him a lot as like a downfield receiver in his weirdly in the first half of his rookie season, he just was running a lot of big post routes and 9 routes. It's like, well, that's not his game. And then they move him closer to the line of scrimmage, and it really was successful. And yeah, there's not a lot of guys that take that big jump in terms of man coverage. And that's where it's kind of tough to doubt this guy, because he's such a good, like, he's obviously such a hard worker. He's such a good player. He's such a disciplined craftsman,
Yeah, you're right. He wasn't asked to run a lot of downfield routes. I would be surprised if that area ever develops. I really would. Lacking the top end speed. He's also a smaller receiver. It's just, it wouldn't seem like, from a physicality standpoint, that would be an area. And to be honest with you, those might be wasted routes. To be asking Amon-Ra St. Brown to do that, because he is just such a reliable chain mover, right? If you can just bank 8 yards, 10 yards, 12 yards with Amon-Ra every single time you throw him the ball, you're doing that, So I wonder if it would almost be wasted snaps to ask him to run these aggressive routes downfield, just knowing the physicality. But again, maybe doubting him is the wrong way to go. Maybe doubting this man is the wrong way to go. At some point, you called him a Bud Light Cooper Kupp. Can he do that? Can he put together I don't want to say a 2,000-yard season, but a Bud Light version of that? Can he? Look, he had a good season last year. He really did, right? But he didn't crack 1,200 yards. He had 6 touchdowns. That's fine. That's good. 16 games, 6 touchdowns. That's totally fine. But when we're talking about development of player, turning from a good player into a great player, can he become a great player on his own without help on the outside? That's my question to you, Matt. Can this guy crack into like 1,400 yards and 10 touchdowns? That's what it takes from a statistical, benchmark to say, yeah, okay, this guy now has arrived. He is a great player. We're talking 1,400 yards, double-digit touchdowns. That's the dude. Amon-Ra St. Brown is that dude. Can he be that dude in this offense with no other options on the outside? I'll ask you that. Because I'm not sure. I would have told you a week ago before seeing the profile, I would have said, no, cannot do it without a reliable outside option on this offense, or at least the threat of an outside op. They don't have a threat of an outside guy for the first 6 games. But seeing that individual improvement against man and press, like I said, now I'm not so sure, man. I'm not so sure. He might be able to do it.
I think he can do it. It's just from a statistical perspective, it just is the offense going to be good enough? We think yes, because Ben Johnson's good, and like Jared Goff, for as much crap as people give Jared Goff, he's like a perfectly fine, average starting quarterback, maybe even above average starting quarterback in the NFL. He's good enough to get. I mean, dude, Cooper Kupp was having those seasons, before Matthew Stafford arrived. He was having those years with this very same quarterback. Was he having? He wasn't having the seasons that he was having in 2021, right? But he had 974 yards in 15 games and 12 starts in 2020 working back. And then in the year before, he had 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns, 94 catches. So, he can have Cooper Kupp having those type of years. Amon-Ra St. Brown can definitely have those type of years. It's just from an offensive efficiency perspective, are they going to be good enough for Amon-Ra St. Brown to be on the field enough for him to get 1,500 yards? I do think the other players on offense are going to have to step up.